All right, hi everybody. Jim here with JP Property Consulting. So hopefully you've watched my first video on part one of the application processing procedures video, where we talked about the income and verification and the housing and landlord verification portion. Now we're going to go over the credit report and a little bit with the criminal background history reports that we're going to run. So first, what I want to talk to you about is when you're running the credit reports, also one thing I want you to do is to treat the home foreclosures. Actually, let me back up for just a second. What I want you to do is, a lot of you guys are actually just looking at the credit score itself. And I want you to go a little bit further than looking at the credit score. We're going to actually open up the credit report and look at these items on the report. So what things, because I want you to look at a couple of things on here other than just do they pay their Visa and MasterCard on time. If they have a home foreclosure, look for something like that. Or if they say they were a homeowner, verify that by looking at and trying to find the actual mortgage payment on there and circle it so you verify that yes, this person was a homeowner, and then use that as their housing verification. That's their payment history. That's the same as you would with a landlord. So if they have a home foreclosure, you're going to treat that the same way as if they had an eviction as well. Also, a couple of things I want you to do is to take a look at all the accounts and make sure that none of them belong to an actual housing provider. So if they could have, otherwise, if you're just looking at the credit score and you're just simply opening up that credit report or not opening up the credit report, but you're just looking at that initial page that says accept or reject, or tells you what their score is, and they meet your score requirements, let's say, right? But they could have, let's say, 10 accounts on there: Visa, MasterCard, their student loan, American Express, and so on. And 9 of them they pay on time every month. But one of them, they've been sent to collections. They'd have a pretty decent score, and they would probably be accepted, or they or on most of your standards. What I want you to do is to open up the actual credit report, look at all those accounts, and verify that that one account that was sent to collections was not a property management company or a previous landlord, because that should be something that you're going to be saying would be an automatic decline. It is over where I've always been at. What the companies I've always worked for is that you cannot owe a previous landlord money. Verify that through looking at the credit report and looking at each of the accounts, not just the actual score itself. So by doing that, also take a look at the very top when you run the credit report, and you're gonna print out the credit report. Look at the top of the report. It'll show their name, and it's going to show a couple previous addresses and their current address on there as well. Match those up with what's on their application. Make sure those addresses are showing up on there. You can always Google those addresses, or even contact the city assessor, as we talked about in my other previous video with the housing verification form. Google those addresses that come up on the credit report and contact the city assessor with them. That's public information as to who owns that property. So you can, there a lot of times those websites for that city assessor will have a little spot on there that you can type in the address, and it'll pop up and tell you who the owner of that is. Match that owner name up, okay, with who they're saying is the owner. The other thing I want you to do is look at their aliases. And if they have, it'll show their name, and it'll show a couple aliases. It'll say also known as. So if this woman has been married and remarried, or divorced, or whatever, and she's got an alias or a maiden name or a previous marriage name on there, look up those names as well. So do criminal histories on each one of those reports. I had a gentleman one time that he went by the name, I don't remember what it was, because this was a number of decades ago, but or at least 15 years ago or so. We had a guy that applied, ran the guy's criminal history report, did his income verification. He made plenty of money. Nothing came back on the criminal history report. He had decent history and everything on there. I run the credit report. Everything came back good. He had paid his bills on time. Everything looked good on there. But right underneath his name, it said something to the effect of, and I don't quote me on what this name was, but it was something to the effect of Larry St. John or something like that, right? And underneath his name, it said also known as Larry SAINT right? Well, now I'm going to go run a criminal history report on that name. This guy had a rap sheet about a half mile long. So be sure you're also running criminal history reports on these aliases that come up on the credit report. This is a good reason why I hope all you guys are running credit reports. If not, you really should start to do so, because there's so much other information that you can find on that credit report that you're not discovering by just doing your normal process. All right, so with researching those aliases, researching the addresses that come up on the credit report as well too. When the aliases come up as well too, sometimes you'll research the address and you'll run the city assessor report, and it'll tell you who the owner of that address is, right? Or one of the addresses that are on their application that they write down. They say, yeah, call this guy, he was my previous landlord, and they give you his name, and you verify that name is the owner by doing your city assessor check, right? But then you might find out that that guy's last name is the same last name as this woman's maiden name on her also known as section, on her aliases on the credit report. Well, you're not going to use that now as a landlord verification, because you're going to put 2 and 2 together and figure their family, right? So then you're going to go maybe the next step and go to the previous landlord before that. So that's key to do too. Make sure you check all the accounts, make sure there's no money's owed to previous landlords. We talked about also that if you I talk about if you charge them for the credit report, be sure you know your state's particular laws as to what you can charge for application fees. Some states, like where I'm at, they only allow us to charge an application fee up to the cost of running the credit report, and then nothing more than that. And then if you have to run a criminal history, a national criminal history for an out-of-state applicant, you can charge them that. And then the maximum that we have over here where I'm at in Wisconsin at this very moment in time is the maximum to be able to charge them is $25. But the most you can really charge them is for the actual cost of running that credit report. The 25 is the max. That's here in Wisconsin where I'm in. So do check your state laws as to what you can and cannot do for charging application fees, and make sure you're following those laws. If they do get declined for any reason on that credit report, you must provide them that letter in writing, that adverse action letter. So you need to mail that to them and explain to them that there was an item on their credit report that was discovered that caused your application to be declined, and then you give them the contact information to the credit agency and let them know that they have the right to receive a free copy of that credit report by contacting that company, whether it be TransUnion or Equifax or Experian, whoever you're using. On that note, a couple last things here. One is, I'm not a big fan of these third-party verification places, like AppFolio and this and that kind of stuff, where a lot of these landlords kind of put these duties off onto a third-party validator, and they kind of send them the application saying, "You run this application for me." I can guarantee you those companies that, like, for example, AppFolio or whoever you may be using as a third-party validator, is probably not checking all these things on the application, is probably not checking the credit reports this extensively. They're only looking at really the score, or do they have any bankruptcies or any judgments or so on. And they're not probably, my guess is that they're probably not looking at things and like the aliases that come up on there and then researching those criminal histories, or they're not checking things like the addresses that come up on the credit report and then validating who those addresses belong to, and then doing potential rental verifications with that landlord if someone did own that. So I'm not a real big fan of those companies that that run things from a third party standpoint. A lot of times that could be a reason why you're getting some of this riffraff as tenants, because you're not doing this as thoroughly as you really could be doing, and that company that you're hiring isn't really doing things as thoroughly as it could be doing. So I'm a fan of, I get it, it takes a little bit more time out of your hands, but it really shouldn't that much. It's not that extensive, but I prefer to do this stuff on my own and make sure I am in control of what we're looking at on that application processing procedure. Other than that hopefully that gave you guys a little bit of information. Do the same thing when you're running those criminal history reports. When you run that report, look at the addresses, even open up each one of those criminal history reports, even if it's just something like a traffic report. Look to see if there's an address listed on there, and then research that address on there as well too. Make sure you're keeping copies of all of these steps as well, because you want to make sure you're showing that you're doing the same thing with each and every applicant. So when you run that city assessor report and you type in the address and it pops up on that website and says, yes, that belongs to Bill Jones, print that page out and keep that with the file, because you want to show that you're doing this process with each and every single applicant, not just the shady looking guys. So you're showing that when Grandma Ethel comes in and applies, you're doing this with her as well too. And the way you're going to show that is by documenting and keeping the documentation with these files. Hopefully that was helpful to you guys. If you have any other suggestions of what I can put videos on, please make comments down below. I do have extensive coursework that you guys can purchase classes on my website, jppropertyconsulting.com. I've got classes on fair housing, on application processing procedures, which we go through a whole slew of stuff other than just what we did here. I got a class on general property operations and different tips and tricks of how we do things at the large apartment communities, which is where I come from, the big companies, the big national and statewide management companies, and leasing and marketing ideas and tips and tricks. And we have a section on leasing safety protocol, things to keep yourself safe and that you should be doing when showing apartments for safety purposes. So if that sounds interesting to you, go check out my website, jppropertyconsulting.com. I've got coursework for you that it's available to purchase, and that also comes with each of the courses come with their own set of documents that you can download, which will be forms that are going to be pertinent to that particular class. So again, jppropertyconsulting.com. Please like and subscribe to get notifications when I put more information out and more new training videos out. And hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you guys for watching.